skill which is very important when we are studying about the micro teaching skills. So what is stimulus variation skill? Let's understand about it. Now students, today's class learning objectives will be to enable you to recall and recognize about the micro teaching skills. What are the micro teaching skills? As we all know that micro teaching skills are actually some sort of skills which are very important in the classroom, and this is actually done within some format, and few 5 to 7 minutes classes is taken, and then feedback is also given. So sometimes we are actually feeling that why these skills are very important. So the answer is that these skills are very important as they focus on each and every element of the society. So we will also enable you to understand the importance of stimulus variation skill in today's classroom teaching. So how it is affecting the students, and in what way, what should be done, what should not be done, and how the stimulus variation takes form in the classroom. So learning outcomes will be very fine if you will be able to recall and recognize the micro teaching skills. Then you will be able to understand the importance of micro teaching skills in classroom teaching. All right. So now let's understand first of all about the word stimulus. What is stimulus? So stimulus is something, students, that is referring to an agent, action, or condition. Okay, so agent, action, or condition that elicits, accelerates, or rouses to physiological or psychological action, activity, or responses. It means something is there which works like an agent, and it is actually enabling someone to do some action. The person is sitting idly, the person is doing nothing, but there is something within the person or outside the person which is enabling him to do something and accelerating his physiological, which is related to body parts and psychomotor relatedness. So it is actually activating that part. So again, psychologically also we get the stimulus when we are actually proceeded and we are motivated to do some work activity, or we are actually motivated to give some responses also. So this is called stimulus. Now let's talk about variation, students. What is variation? We have studied about stimulus, that stimulus is something which is working like an agent to promote you to work something, to think in a way that is actually making you active. So variation means changing these stimuli to explain content lively and remove the boredom from the classroom teaching. So just understand it in that way, that as a teacher teaches in the classroom, teacher does so many activities, and with the help of so many activities, teacher completes the lesson and teacher teaches the content in a very explanative way. So this is something that variation is leading. Sometimes teacher is actually making movement in the class, and sometimes the teacher is doing something else. So this is very important, that there should be such kind of variation in teachers teaching. It should not be in a one way only, and it should not be very boredom, very monotonous, and not any interest in teaching. The teacher's interest is being inculcated in students' faces. So this is very important, students. So just remember that we are actually doing what actually students are learning. So understand that variation is changing these stimuli to explain the content lively and remove the boredom from the classroom teaching. Now stimulus variation, let's understand these two words together. So the set of teachers' behavior that tend to secure and sustain pupils' attention in the skill of stimulus variation. It is very important, students, that in the classroom the teachers should not make any noise. and the teachers set of teachers behavior that tend to secure and sustain pupils attention in the skills of stimulus variation. So sometimes it happens that teacher is teaching in the classroom, all right, teacher is teaching in the classroom, and teacher is actually thinking that the students are understanding, but maybe the students are not understanding by that time. So in that case, what the students are going to do, students will be understanding the concepts by understanding them well, and whatever the teacher is teaching. So understand that it is a secure and sustained, and we are actually drawing the attention. Okay, so this is something I want to tell you. Now let's understand about meaning and nature. What is stimulus variation? So stimulus variation is something that is very skillful change in any teacher or anything that is related to classroom teaching. So skillful change in the stimuli is known as the skillful skill of stimulus variation. So just to avoid boredom, it is the teacher's skill to stimulate the students, increase their active participation, enthusiasm, and spirit of study. So by the help of stimulus variation skill, the teacher is actually maintaining the interest of students and uh, increase their skills to stimulate uh, their active participation. So this is something that students we are going to get at. The chief aim of the teachers teaching in the classroom is to make the lessons impressive and interesting. For this, the use of various types of methods and techniques are an essentiality. So to in order to in order to attract the students, teacher may present various types of stimuli and can function as stimulus. He or she presents various stimuli in the classroom because without taking the help of stimuli, the teachers are not actually attaining that predetermined objectives in the classroom, which was decided by the teacher herself, which can be done achieved in the classroom. So with the help of these stimulus, the teacher presents various stimuli such as movement of the body, gestures, changes in speech, focusing of the feeling, and change in the interaction style of in the students, pause and change in the order of audio visual aids. So she can attract the learners by changing all these aspects which function as stimuli. So, stimulus variation is a way of enhancing children learning by helping them remain attentive. So, it is the way students that maintaining students' attention as well. If the teacher talks too long, students are bound to see interest or eye contact to the teacher. So it is very important when the teacher is teaching in the classroom, teacher must enhance the students learning, and it is only possible through very small stimulus in the classroom. So the teacher should reduce talking such that people has interest in what they are doing through very stimulus. So students, a teacher who is able to vary stimulus his her lesson become effective as there is high participation with learners and great achievement of the lesson objectives. So positive results of learners who given a task in a more interesting lesson can perform well, resulting no disciplinary problems. So this is actually very important. So now understand some important words which I'm teaching you today about stimulus variation skill. So first of all, stimulating. What does it mean? Its meaning is inspiring, motivating to do something. As I told you that stimulus means like an agent. It works actually upon us to enable us to do some action. And variation is deviation, where you are not using only one stimuli to arouse the interest among your students, but you are having a variety of it. All right. So then we are talking about movement. So movement is actually related to the classroom movement of a teacher, which is actually changing the position in the classroom time to time. So sometimes some teachers are actually standing at one side and teaching the whole content. That is not actually appreciable. We have to be very particular about it, and we have to maintain the movement part also, as there are so many students. So we have to keep eye on all the corners of the class. So it is very important to take the movements also. But students, it is not appreciable when a teacher is making too much movement, more than required. So it is very, very important. Then next term is gesture. So gesture is actually called signal. So what type of signals you are presenting in front of your students, that is very important. Then focus is centered. So where the focus is of your students, that is really matters a lot, because whatever you are teaching, your students are going to learn in that way. So it is very, very important. Then pattern or prototype is called pattern, how you are following the stimulus in the class. So that is very important. Verbal is related to oral part. Now let's understand the objectives of stimulus variation skill, students. Why we use the stimulus variation skill in the classroom. So there are some 8 objectives. So let's understand them one by one. Now, first of all, to enhance the students' capacity of thinking. So thinking is a part, students, which is done by at the highest level when the teachers are actually doing something. So the thinking is actually enhanced when the students are achieving high order thinking skills, and it is only possible when the teacher is giving the correct motivation. All right. So enhance the active involvement of the students in the teaching, to enable the students for understanding the concept, and as well to enhance liveliness in teaching is also very important. To enhance continuous thinking of students for understanding concepts and to grab the attention of the students is also very important. To minimize the students' mental fatigue and boredom is also very necessary. So that's why teacher must use stimulus variation skill in the classroom. To learn how to teach or use the stimulus or techniques in the classroom is also one of the objective of the stimulus variation skill. Now let's understand why do we need stimulus variation skill, and how come it is so important for a teacher. So first of all, the need, we are focusing that types of learner. So students, we all know that mainly there are 2 types of learner. First is visual and secondly is audible. Or as researcher says, men collect knowledge from their sensory organs. Whatever we perceive, we see from our eyes, we can sense it. So it is very, very important. So just check our knowledge from sensory organs and gaining the knowledge from sensory organs. So men receive most of the knowledge by audio visually. It is up to 85%. So how it is important in a classroom that how my student is learning. So while teaching, teacher has to keep in mind to use as much sensory organ as she or he can use. So types of learners are actually important in the classroom, and along with that audible and visual part, there are other high IQ students in the classroom, average IQ, low IQ, which those need special attention. So a teacher must give stimulus to them accordingly. Next is role of fluctuating attention. Why attention is fluctuating? So one more interesting research about the human tendencies, that is man can't pay attention continuously on one stimuli more than 5 minutes. So if you are getting one thing and you are paying attention on it, then it is most possible that after 5 minutes you will be losing your attention, and then you will be demanding for another stimuli. So teacher has to use some tricks to switch students attention from one place to another. Just remember, very small students class or primary pre-primary classes, the teacher works so hard to maintain those students and interest that is actually helpful for them to learn the concept. So it removes boredom from the teaching, it sustains students attention towards the teaching. Now, deal with individual differences. We all know that we all are not same students. We have individual differences among us. Nobody is same. We have the difference of opinions. We have difference of the way we are living, the difference of interest, this difference of creativity, difference of presenting yourself. So how to deal with those individual differences? So there are different types of students in the class, like different intelligence quotient, that is IQ, and that again EQ, that is called emotional quotient. So hobbies are different. So everybody's emotional level is also not same. Some people are very emotional, and some people are sometimes, so we feel that they are not emotional, they are not sensitive. So it has to be taken in care when we are understanding that. So then hobbies, interest, various aspects of personality, so to make students understand your topic easily and actively, this skill is very important. Then fourth point, that why we need stimulus variation in the classroom, just to break the monotony of the lesson. Sometimes it happens the students are continuously studying and the teacher is doing so much hard work, but it is not possible that a teacher is actually continuously talking to someone. So this is not possible for a teacher to maintain that. So boredom caused by a lack of variety. Students tend to remain interested, listen, watch, or do something only for a limited period of time. All right. So therefore, teachers need to vary their presentation to keep students focused on the lesson plan. Now, motivate the students to learn. Variety in itself enhances children's motivation and interest. So, teacher's main task is to teach the concept to the student. So, it is very important, students, that how the teacher is motivating the students. The class is more interesting and appealing when students can look forward to discussions. Yes, discussions are very important. Projects, games, demonstrations, role plays, and other strategies. So monotonous, predictable routine reduces both motivation and retention of the ideas. So this is something that a teacher must take care while teaching in the classroom. Now, sixth point that we are going to discuss about the to meet the needs of all the learners, that it is very important to maintain the stimulus variation skill. So we all know about it as a teacher, that students have different needs. Sometimes they are happily learning something, and sometimes they are not in that much mood to learn a new concept. In that case, the teacher must know the particular need of the learners, and then because students differ greatly in their ability and aptitude to learn. So individual differences are normal and should be expected by the teacher. There, students will not find a class where there are no differences and all the students are same. It cannot be possible because in IQ or EQ, the students are somewhat different, definitely. So, celebrated and explicitly embraced by teachers in an effort to build capacity in learners' multi abilities. We all know that students are having multi abilities in them, but to explore them, just to polish them, teacher plays an important role. For that, teacher needs to give stimulus to them to arouse their interest and just to build capacity in their efficiency. Now, some interesting facts, students, I'm sharing with you. According to Murgio, a famous scholar, he says that of what we know, we have learned about 1% through taste, 2% through touch. We are talking about sense organs, sensory organs, how they are reacting when we are learning. So 1% we learn from taste, 2% through touch, and 4% through smell, and 10% through hearing, and 83% through sight. So what we see, we learn better. All right, so just remember the percent: 1% through taste, 2% through touch, 4% through smell, 10% through hearing, and 83% through sight. So what do we see? We learn better. So increase the retention power of the students through the involvement of all the senses. And according to Murgio, of what we learn, we retain. We actually keep it with ourselves. So that is the person. 10% of what we read. If we have read something, we retain to it. We keep it to ourselves, and it is increasing our learning up to 10%. And of what we hear is of 20%, and 30% of what we see. If we see something, then we retain it. 30% retaining, I'm talking about. In earlier slide we were talking, we learn. Okay, so 50% of what we hear and see. So 70% of what we say and 90% of what we say and do. So saying and doing both is equally important, and by that time we are understanding that students are learning as well as retaining. The retaining means to keep the content or understanding with them in a more good way. All right, students. So now topic selection. Well, beginning is half done if you have done the topic selection, students. If you are well enough in choosing your topic, if you choose the correct topic for this skill, then you can easily prepare lesson plan. So prepare a topic, good topic about stimulus variation skill, or for choosing the skill. So your half of the part is done. Follow the following instructions for selection of the topic, and then study the sub skills and accordingly select the topic. So when you are teaching a content in the classroom, you must see that what type of topic you are going to teach to your students, and accordingly you must follow the sub skills or the components of the stimulus variation skill. Now there are variety of topics we can talk about. There are some subjects given to you. At the left side you can see language, science, history, geography, economics or commerce, computer, mathematics, geometry, environmental science, value education. So these are all the subjects that students are studying. So when we are teaching them, so for example, in languages, if we are choosing poem, dialogue based lesson, or story based lesson, writing part, etc. So these are the topics where we have to show our stimulus variation skill in the maximum part. You will recite the poem in the classroom to teach the children, but if you are yourself not having those stimulus, then how can students learn? So just remember the small children, the very primary and pre-primary students who learn twinkle twinkle little star with the expression of their hands and just twinkling them like that. So this goes in their mind, that stars twinkle in that way, and they are understanding, and they are imagining in a beautiful way. All right, so then next is about science. You can see experiment and history when we are teaching something like World War One and Two, or culture of different countries. And again, I'm talking about mathematics, so graphs and statistics, algebraic expressions. So these are all actually taught with lots of stimuli in the classroom situations. So students, just remember, being prospective teachers, you cannot actually ignore the stimulus variation skill in the classroom. All right, so just remember this, these subjects and different topics. Now we are talking about sub skills, or the components of the stimulus variation skills. And in that, first of all, there is movements. So I told you about the movements. The teacher's overall physical movement is very essential in the classroom, with the purpose of covering the whole class and creating better and more intimate atmosphere in the teacher-student relationship. Moving from one place to another with same purpose is actually required. So for writing on the blackboard, the teacher is moving. To conduct experiment, teacher is moving. To explain the chart or model, to pay attention to the pupil who is responding to some questions, etc. The teacher is moving in the classroom and just paying very nice elaboration to the students to understand the concepts. So move freely and relax to avoid fear and to control students' behavior. Never write on the board while talking. It is actually something that is we always encourage you to do, but in so no explanation while walking around all the time. So this has to be remembered all the time. You cannot speak and move all together. So movement should be balanced in the classroom. Move away from the student asking a question, so as to involve other students also. You are not going to one particular student and then asking the question. It is not the right way. And what you should do exactly, you must stand in front of students and then you must ask the questions. To observe the whole class move slowly from the back to the front. So this is something that students you must remember while teaching. Now, second thing is gestures. So these include movements of head, hand, and body parts to arrest attention. Gestures are very, very important when a teacher teaches in the classroom. Basically, the stimulus variation we are studying, and gesture plays an important role when we are studying about it. So this is very important to understand that it includes movement of head, hand, and body parts to arrest attention of the students, to express emotions, or to indicate shape, size, and movements, how the teacher is teaching. All these acts are performed to become more expressive. Okay, students. So the teacher's gestures, the teacher's body movements, which communicate certain meaningful ideas to the students. So move hands and fingers to describe things, measurements, etc. While talking with the student, show agreements by nodding heads so as to encourage the students to go on explaining. Okay, so shows adoration or wonder by raising eyebrows high so as to show interest in what the students are talking about. So each and every gesture, your facial expression works on students, and they receive a particular kind of message during your class, and then they behave in that way and they react in that way. So it's up to the teacher what kind of gesture the teacher is actually required to give to his or her students, so that they maintain a good class decorum and they learn very effectively whatever the content is teaching being taught by the teacher. Then use mimics to show agreements, disagreements, wonder and disbelief, anger or incomprehension, etc. Claps hands to attract the students' attention or to show happiness, wonder, etc. So this is very important, students, that gestures play an important role and we cannot move away from it, and it is very essential for all the teachers to pay very close attention to the gestures in the classroom. Now, this is about speech pattern, the third component or the sub skill of stimulus variation skill, that is change in speech pattern. So, when the teacher want to show emotions or to put emphasis on a particular point, sudden or radical changes in tone, volume, or speed of the verbal presentation are brought out. The change in the speech pattern makes the pupils attentive and creates interest in the lesson. So, speak using different speech patterns to avoid boredom. Do not be monotonous, speak attractively and energetically. So, this is something that will motivate the students in your teaching, that they will be interested and they will rather wait for your class when it is your period. So don't be monotonous in the class, speak attractively and energetically. Your energy level is actually very much essential in the classroom. If it is low, then students it is said that teachers energy passes among the students, so don't pass your low energy to your students. Then speak loudly enough for the students at the back to hear what the teacher is saying, but not too loud so that the students at the front get shocked. So this is something, students, you must remember while teaching in the classroom, and we are talking the skill of stimulus variation, so you must take care of all these things. Now, change in interaction style. This is the fourth sub skill or the component of stimulus variation skill. There should be change in interaction style. One style should not be followed all the time. So, when two or more persons communicate their views with each other, they are said to be interacting. In the classroom, the following three styles of interactions are possible: teacher, class. It means teacher talks to class and vice versa. So teach, both arrows are indicating towards each other. So teacher and class is actually coordinating with each other. Then teacher pupil, a particular student we are talking, the teacher pupil, teacher talks to pupil and vice versa, pupil talks to teacher. Then pupil pupil, these type of interactions we find in the class. So pupil talks to pupil. So three types of talks are here: teacher to class, class to teacher, teacher to pupil, pupil to teacher, pupil pupil, and this is actually the third part. So this is teacher and whole class. There are some situation the teacher is talking to whole class, teacher is talking to small group of the class. So teacher is or the small group is talking to teacher, or pupil they are talking to each other, pupil is talking to whole class, or teacher pupil is talking to each other. And individual work is may also be going on in the class. So all types of interaction should go side by side to secure and sustain pupils attention. So it's very tough to actually draw the attention of students all the time, students. So it is actually helpful when we are following these type of interaction styles in the class. So it will make your teaching very interesting when you are actually talking to class sometimes, talking to pupils sometimes, and in the vice versa, class is talking to you and people are talking to you. Now, fifth very important point is about focusing. Focusing means the teacher is drawing the attention of the pupils to a particular point of the lesson, whatever the teacher is teaching. It means just imagine the teacher is showing a geographical map of India and teacher is pointing out where is Rajasthan and where are the Aravlis of Rajasthan. So this is something the teacher is focusing in the classroom. So listen either by using verbal or gestural focusing. Just look at there. So this is also types of focusing. In verbal focusing, the teacher makes statements like look here, listen to me. So this is all about like teacher is giving verbal focusing to the students. Note it carefully. If I say this is also another verbal focusing, then in gestural focusing, pointing towards some object with fingers or underlining the important words on the blackboard. So equally it is very important. So gesture is always all the time very important, but as well you are giving the gestures to focus, this is also important. Now, this is the sixth part, student, pausing. And pausing is really very different and good thing that you all are understanding. This means stop talking by the teacher for a moment. So, when the teacher becomes silent during the classroom teaching, it at once draws the attention of the pupils with curiosity towards the teacher. So the message given at this point is early received by the pupils. Silence, pausing can be caused in different ways, such as to emphasize an important point, why a teacher takes pauses. So to create suspense and arouse thinking, to provide time for students to think from something before they respond, to promote students participation by providing encouragement and opportunity to comment or question, to draw attention by contrasting speech with silence, to give students time to make notes before continuing with the lecture or dictation, to show disapproval for students' misbehavior. So it is all about pausing, why it is required, why teacher stops talking, why the students are stopped talking. Oral visual switching. Now, this is the seventh component of stimulus variation skill. So, the teacher gives information to the class verbally about something. This is called oral medium, when I'm giving information about something in a verbal mode. So, when the teacher is showing maps, charts, objects without saying something, this is called visual medium. So, if the teacher is giving information to the pupils through any one medium, oral visual, for a long time, it is possible that the students may lose attention to what the teacher is conveying to them. So, therefore, it is essential for the teacher to change medium rapidly in order to secure and sustain pupils' attention to what he says. There are three types of media: oral, visual. Then oral, oral, visual. So in first part, oral, visual, when the teacher while speaking shows object, speaking and then showing the object. It means speaking and then going to object is charts, models, and explains the various parts. It is switching from oral and visual. So this is something like that. So then oral visual, when the teacher while speaking shows objects, maps, charts, globe, etc. It is switching from oral to visual. So just understand it, the minute difference in it, students. Visual, oral, visual. When the teacher demonstrates the experiment silently and then explains the phenomena of with the help of chart, maps, diagrams, etc. It is visual oral switching. These devices are used interestingly by the pupils' attention to catch the pupils' attention. Now, there are some do's and don'ts, students, which a teacher must do and teacher mustn't do in the classroom. So, what are the do's for a teacher? So, managing student discussion is really very required from teachers. Structure classroom discussions with purposeful questions. Then manage dialogue in large and small group discussions. By doing this, the teacher can learn where students are in their understanding and provide timely assistance through her own questions, clarifications, and follow up activities based on what she has learned. Then assisted performance and scaffolding. Scaffolding is something just understanding one thing after the another. So teacher can provide various forms of assistance such as providing a model, demonstrating a process physically, and talking about how experts think on an issue. So teachers can also help by breaking up a task into smaller units. Developing learning communities consist of students to students interaction in the social context. So it is very important dues that the teacher must take care. Now, there is a list of don'ts also that a teacher must not do while teaching to the students. So, to move like pendulum, it's not actually expected from a teacher to come forward and go backward, unnecessary, not required. To sit on the table is not required. To touch head or hair is not actually appreciable. To touch lips with the tongue is not good. To stand on the same place for a long time, it's not good. To avoid board work, repetition of the same activity. These are some points, students, you must remember when you teach in the classroom. To move shoulders all the time, to rotate neck again and again, touch the eyes, to move the eyebrows, to play with chalks, to tie the pants. These are some points that must not happen by the teacher in the classroom. So the stimulus variation involves the following steps in the classroom. Step 1, stimulus variation skill to be practiced is explained to the teacher's trainees in terms of the purpose and components of the skill with suitable example. And in step 2, the teacher trainer gives the demonstration of the stimulus variation skill in stimulated condition to the teacher's training. Then step 3 involves the teacher trainees plans a short lesson plan on the basis of the demonstration of the stimulus variation skill for his her practice. Step 4, the teacher trainees teaches the lesson to a small group of pupils. His lesson is supervised by the supervisor and peers. Then step 5 follows on the basis of the observation of the lesson, and the supervisor gives feedback to the teachers trainees. The supervisor reinforces the instances of effective use of skill and draws attention of the teacher trainees to the points where he could not do well. And in step 5, in the light of the feedback given by the supervisor, the trainees, the replans the lesson plan in order to use the skill is more effective manner in the second trial. Step 6 is related to the revised lesson is taught to the same group of pupils, and then in 8th step the supervisor observes the reteach lesson and gives re-feedback to the students. Then teacher trainees with convincing arguments and reasons. So step 9th is involving the teach and reteach, and there its cycle may be repeated several times till adequate mastery in all the components level is achieved. So these are almost 9 steps in which teach and reteach, feedback, everything is covered. Now see, this is the teacher's activity, pupil's activity, and the components of the stimulus variation skill which are actually being used in the classroom. So I shall tell you a story. Try to be attentive. When the teacher is saying try to be attentive, it means verbal focusing by the teacher is being actually tried in the classroom. And pupil's activity, what is the story? Maybe they are thinking and maybe they are asking. So, for what Jhansi is famous for Rani Lakshmi Bai. Then, so on. There are many questions which are actually giving various ideas of covering the components of this skill. Yes, I shall tell you the story of Rani of Jhansi. It is very interesting. Listen carefully. Again, verbal focusing. She was born in Kashi on June 16, 1835. Now, here is a pause, and students are listening very carefully. Do you know? Students are listening attentively. She was married to Sri Gangadhar Rao, a ruler of Jhansi in 1842. Now, in this question, the non-verbal cues to show size of the child, the pausing is also given. And so on, you can see all the components like change in speech pattern, oral visual switching pauses is also done, oral visual switching, change of speech patterns, pausing, verbal focusing, change in speech pattern, gestures. It is all followed by following the questions. And now you can notice, students, when the teacher is continuously giving students stimulus variation, and it means that teacher is actually presenting some stimuli in front of students to learn the content of that day particularly, so they are also enthusiastically active, listening attentively, listening carefully. So these type of activities are marked in pupils activity column when you are preparing a lesson plan of micro teaching skill. Now, students, let's have some MCQs related to this. And in general, maximum participation of students during teaching is possible through lecture method, demonstration method, inductive method, textbook method. So it is about inductive method. During the course of the class teaching, the teacher should take his students from known to unknown, unknown to known, known to unknown, unknown to unknown. So the correct answer is known to unknown. So the next Dalton plan is associated with John Dewey, H.E. Armstrong, Helen Parkhurst, Catherine Ambridge. So Helen Parkhurst is the right answer. Which institution develops NCF for school education? NCERT, NAC, NCTE, SIE, MAT. So the correct answer is NCERT. Now, a method used for the acquisition of skills is inquiry learning, team teaching, discovery learning, or micro teaching. So the correct answer is micro teaching skills. Micro teaching is more effective, students, when option A, after the teaching practice, during teaching practice, during preparation for teaching practice, D, always. So the correct answer is C, during preparation for teaching practice. So micro teaching must be planned in a very systematic way. Gesture is a sub-skill of introduction skill, questioning skill, skill of stimulus variation, explanation skill, and skill of stimulus variation is the correct answer, as we have just seen what is gesture and how it is to be maintained in the classroom teaching. Then observation schedule. The major theorist of concept attainment model is Jerome S. Brunner and David Ausubel, Richard Suchman, none of these. So correct answer is Jerome S. Brunner. Skill of stimulus variation. Teaching skills can be evaluated by interview, inventories, observation schedule, questionnaire. So correct answer is observation schedule. Now this is all about from today's class, students. Now we have come to the end of the class, and I hope you have understood well about what is stimulus variation skill, as we have seen in detail what is the importance and need of the stimulus variation and how stimulus variation is actually used in the classroom and to what extent. Then we have also seen the sub skills and components of a stimulus variation skill. So I hope all of you have done a very good understanding with, and you will take care when you will teach in the classroom, and you will just apply your do's and don'ts when whatever we have discussed. So everyone, I hope you will take care and stay safe. Thank you everyone, students.